A few years ago, I did something terrible. Sometimes I really wish I didn't. Something I can never take back, honestly. It all started when my ex-girlfriend, broke up with me. I know this might seem trivial and just a part of life as growing up as a person. However, unfortunately for me, it had a complete reverse effect. I know all you think I'm childish and I just needed to take it on the chin and deal with it. You might be right, but I didn't. I helped her with everything within her life. I wasn't going to allow that to happen unpunished. I know it was petty and it was wrong, but you have to understand I was desperate. I was hurting. It honestly felt as though my heart was aching. It was throbbing so hard I honestly thought at any point I would explode. I know that sounds dramatic and I'm honestly not looking for sympathy. I'm not the victim here. Well, not anymore. I made sure of that. I honestly could feel my body shaking with rage, so I got up with hatred and darkness in my heart and I booted up my laptop. I wasn't a stranger to the dark web. I've spent countless hours trying and failing to navigate it to help with my boredom. I only ever found the usual rabbit holes, falling into the typical drug and honey trap sites and forums. I just wanted for her to hurt. I wanted her to feel the embarrassment I had felt and suffered at her hands. My original plan, although very distasteful and wrong, wasn't malicious. It wasn't violent in any way. I just wanted to humiliate her. I still had photos and videos from our time together. Personal videos and photos of her. And in my pent-up anger and depressed state, I thought it was a good idea to use these against her. I see now I was wrong from the start, but I wish I had only done that. As awful as it seems, that was nothing to what I actually did. I kept digging and digging, clicking link after link until eventually I clicked on the link and I found something that caught my attention. It was a forum called the Naughty List. On the site was a question. Do you know someone who has been bad? If so, maybe you should put them on a naughty list. Perfect, I thought. This has got to be it. I'll upload all my personal photos and videos on there, and maybe link her social media, and we'll see who's laughing then. I thought about adding her address, but she was back living with her family, and even I drew the line there. The forum wasn't what I expected, though. You couldn't just upload to their homepage. There were different sections on it, or punishments as they called it. I remember thinking how dramatic it was, how dumb and naive I was. There were several different sections, Elf on the Shelf, Crumpus Cramps, and Frozen Fields, among others. It kind of made me chuckle, I guess. That's why I just didn't think it was anything serious. Anyway, with the sections, Elf on the Shelf kind of made me crack a smile. But that's not what I went with. I chose something called Slay Snatcher. I don't know why, I just did. It was kind of funny to me. After clicking on it, I had to wait a good minute and a half before this bright white page loads up, filled with a few black text boxes, and a text that read, Santa is waiting for this write-up. Write up his naughty list. Please fill in the details and he'll do the rest. I thought to myself, that's cute. I just thought it was kind of stupid, but I filled it in regardless. It was name, age, and birthday, and links to the person's social media. It was all there. Everything I was so desperately looking for, and of course, photo uploads. Jackpot, I remember smiling to myself, halfway cackling in the process. It wouldn't allow me to upload any videos, but the photos were more than enough for me. It was hot girl summer type pictures, if you know what I mean. It also asked for the person's address, but as I previously said, I wasn't really about to go that far. But I did write in her hometown, our hometown, something I really wish I didn't do. After I had finished putting in her information without even a moment's hesitation, I clicked submit. After a few seconds, a little text box appeared asking, are you sure? Santa won't forget. He checks that list twice, all names are final. I smugly pressed yes, and that was that. Perfect, I thought, until I was redirected to another page. It took a few minutes to upload, but when it did, it caught me off guard. It simply said, thank you for submitting the naughty list. We really appreciate it. I had achieved my goal. I thought, job done. It's all uploaded. People will see them and message her on social media. Then she'll be humiliated. Feeling better about myself, I calmly and confidently shut down and wiped everything correctly, making sure I couldn't be traced or implicated in any way. The next morning, I woke with the biggest and most disturbing smile I've ever produced. I was so pleased with myself looking back on it now. It honestly makes me feel sick. I couldn't wait to see the fruits of my labor. I was so excited to see her suffer. I wanted to break her and for her to feel as worthless as she had made me feel. To my absolute dismay and disappointment, nothing happened. I waited and I waited, but nothing. No angry phone calls or texts. No outraged social media posts. Nothing at all. I thought maybe at first she could have been trying to ignore it. Or maybe she reported the abuse and had been told not to engage any potential troll or creeper. I mean, surely it worked, right? I mean, there's no way I could check. I couldn't find that link again even if I tried. Anyone who surfed the deep web or dark web would know this is true. It's just not cataloged, it's a mess. And I only stumbled across it by chance in the first place. I wish I hadn't. So a few more days go by, and by now my excitement was faded. And I feel dejected and genuinely upset that it clearly hadn't worked. No one could be so calm if it had worked. And I couldn't exactly ask her to go check. That would just point the finger straight at me. So after a while, I just gave up. In truth, the whole ordeal was now tiresome to me. And as sad as it sounds, it has strangely made me feel better. Like I hadn't gotten it all out of my system somehow. A few more days later, I was awoken to a loud knock on my door. Previous drama of my former relationship had completely escaped my mind at this point. And just for some context, I live alone and don't get many visitors at all. So I was more annoyed than curious to see who was at my door. So you can imagine my shock when I flung open my door to be greeted by the stern faces of 2 police officers. Shit, I thought to myself. This is it, I'm going to prison. Everyone is going to think I'm some kind of freak, which I guess in all fairness, I was at the time. They asked to come in, and I of course obliged. I said, come on. I remember thinking at the time, they've only asked me to come in. As of right now, I'm not under arrest or anything, so I better see what they want. But what they asked me completely and utterly knocked the wind out of me. When was the last time you saw Katie? I was speechless, and for a second, I must have looked like the most guilty and suspicious person in the world. Realizing this, I quickly shook the look of surprise and dread off my face, and answered as calmly as I could muster. Not since we broke up, around 2 weeks ago. This was true, but it didn't save me from the barrage of intense scrutiny and questioning. Where were you on the night of? I told them the truth at home. Can anyone verify this? I said, no. I live alone, but I get dropped off at home after work by one of my colleagues, which is routine after every shift, so I can, I guess. And what time was this? I told him the truth around 10:30, and the cameras at work would show me leaving at around 10:20, and it's only about a 10-minute drive here. Did you leave your property at any other point after you returned? No. I told the cops that there's a camera by the apartment's entrance that will show I'm telling the truth. His face, intense stare, and concentration until my eyes seemed to waver and loosen slightly. So I thought I'd push my luck and ask what this was all about. He stated that although he can't give me details on an ongoing investigation, Katie had been reported missing. She was last seen by her mother leaving their home to shop and browse the stores but never returned. The police officers left soon after that and actually thanked me for my time. They did check the CCTV and with my boss and colleague who confirmed my story and that I was telling the truth. Days turned into weeks and still nothing. It seemed as though she just had vanished into thin air. I couldn't believe it. It couldn't have been because of me. I thought maybe it's possibly some creep stalked her socials and found her address after I posted them along with the images, but surely it had to be a coincidence. That stupid forum couldn't be real. It said Santa's naughty list. That definitely couldn't be real. The longer it went on, the more horrible I felt. I know I wasn't physically responsible, but in one way or another I had caused this, or at least put the wheels in motion. I felt just as guilty as if I had done something to her. I mean, this is the girl I once loved, the girl I still love, and I had done this. I had caused this, and her poor mother, they had been estranged for years. I tried to get on normally with my life, but it was hard. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. And you know something? I knew I deserved it. I would cringe every time I caught myself feeling sorry for myself. I took to drinking to make myself sleep. Anything to numb the pain, anything to get the image of her face and the sounds of her screams out of my head. I couldn't go to the police, but how could I? If I confessed, my life was as good as over. As selfish as it was, I just didn't believe it would even help to find her if I did. Maybe I was just being a coward, but it was hopeless. She was gone. I waited every morning for an update. I would always call the police station to get an update. It was torture until one day. They did find her, but as I'm sure you all can already tell, this story doesn't have a happy ending. But she was eventually found in an old abandoned factory in the outskirts of the next town over. I just couldn't believe it. I could feel my throat tighten to the point I was struggling to breathe when I heard the news. In my head, I was begging and pleading with whoever or whatever. It must be some kind of mistake, a mix-up. It couldn't be because of me. But unfortunately, it was no mix-up. She was found stuffed in a chimney. Her body was inside a sack, a toy sack. I couldn't believe it. I felt sick. This must be some kind of sick joke. I kept trying and failing to convince myself. I felt my body tremble. She had been there for a while, and you could tell by looking at her. They knew it was her because stuffed into her eye socket was a small piece of paper that read, "Naughty list. Katie, you should have been good." I blacked out, and I collapsed where I was standing, and I hit my head pretty hard. When I regained consciousness, I hoped, I prayed it was just a bad dream. But of course it wasn't. It was real. It was all real. I'm a simp. Nothing will ever make up for the torture I subjected a girl I once loved and cherished. All because my own ego and misguided sense of pride and self-worth. I wish I could take it all back. You deserve justice, Katie. You deserve to be able to rest in peace at the very least. Maybe confessing will bring you and your family closure. Maybe ending my own life will make us even. But regardless of the answer, I'm far too much of a coward for either. I won't go on the dark web again, just because of this situation.